In 1978, the members of The Who were only a couple of years into their 30s and they were already feeling like old men, past their primes, which is hilarious, considering they weren't even close to the halfway point of the band's epic history. This is the final part in my series where I'm talking about the 5 big albums that The Who made during their peak Keith Moon era, and you know what that means. This is the story of 1978's Who Are You? It had been 3 years since The Who released their last album, The Who by the Numbers, and they were really having a hard time getting into the headspace to create. They were drowning in substance abuse at this point, self-medicating the ongoing midlife crises that were rampant throughout the band. But the music that Pete Townshend was coming out with was brilliant. The songs retained some of the themes of his long-lost Lifehouse project that still only existed in fragments and frames in his mind. He, of course, would finally see this project come to fruition 22 years later in 2000 with the Lifehouse Chronicles, which featured a lot of reworked older tracks, several of which are on Who Are You? The album continued his ongoing work of pioneering synth music and rock, and he used complex layering to achieve the full sound that record has. It also featured some of the band's most interesting vocal harmonies, but the band were increasingly fractured. John Entwistle was passively contributing, far more concerned with his own work as a solo artist. And Roger Daltrey was struggling with his iconic voice, requiring his first of many throat surgeries the same year that they were finishing up Who Are You? This is after years of abusing his vocal cords in the name of rock and roll. But Keith Moon was struggling in a very real way. His drumming had deteriorated significantly. This was a man who was once obsessed with being the greatest rock drummer who ever lived, and now he couldn't even keep the tricky 6/8 time on the track Music Must Change, a killer song, which as a result features no percussion at all. Keith was sick, he was unreliable, he was miserable, and he simply wasn't doing the work. He didn't have anything prepped when they got to the studio for numerous tracks, and they spent a lot of time just figuring out what to do with Keith. This is not to say that some really impressive drumming doesn't take place on Who Are You, specifically on the title track, but it was difficult to accomplish, and it was miles from the monster on the drum kit that Keith Moon had once been. He was disgusted with himself, and he desperately wanted to get better. In the summer of 1978, The Who released the title track, and it exploded. The Who were back, or so it seemed. The album was released in mid-August, and it hit number 2 on both the US and the UK album charts. Everyone was excited about this success. It felt like a new beginning. It was something the band really needed. Unfortunately, they wouldn't be able to enjoy it for very long, and unbeknownst to them, the final weeks of The Who's original lineup had arrived.